Welcome to the Urban Complex, a system of interrelated, emotion-charged ideas, feelings, memories, and impulses. This name takes the definition and lays out what a listener should expect. A podcast where ideas, feelings, and memories collide, leading towards meaningful change. I'm co-host Chris Richardson. Please enjoy the journey with the Urban Complex. Smarter cities for a stronger tomorrow.
All opinions by Chris Richardson, Dominic Papa, and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Arizona State University or the Arizona Commerce Authority. Any endorsement of or messages from sponsors are solely supporting the production of this podcast. There is no relationship further than podcast purposes with any sponsor unless separately created with another entity.
Hey Dom, so where are you at? I see a different background. I know I'm in a different spot too.
Yeah, I just had to get out of my loft today in downtown Phoenix, so I came over to Galvanize, working out of Galvanize today. It's for those of the listeners that don't know, it's kind of a co-working space here in downtown Phoenix in the warehouse district. It's kind of interesting, I thought I'd pop in to see how many people were here. Is it back to normal? It's still a little quiet, but it seems to be filling up a little bit more. And so I was always curious about kind of the impact of COVID on co-working spaces and what that's going to mean, because it seemed right before COVID hit, we were getting inundated with, the development of co-working spaces all around the valley. So it's been interesting to see.
Yeah, it makes sense. It also kind of ironic. One of our last guests was representing CivLab, which is all about networking and entrepreneurship, and a lot of co-working brings those folks to the forefront. Cool. Yeah, I'm actually in California, Rancho Santa Fe. So it's been kind of fun as we've done this. I know I was in Cabo one time. You were in Cottonwood. We're in Scottsdale and Phoenix. And I know we kind of jones a little bit to go where our guests are. So one of these days we'll get out there. But it's kind of fun how you can do this stuff on the road with some planning and make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of it, right? This whole remote everything, it allows us to do these podcasts no matter where we are. And maybe co-working spaces are just going to blow up because, I mean, if I could if I could be in Denver and pop into the Galvanize in Denver and do a podcast, hey, I'm all for it.
Well, I'm in a hotel. You can Airbnb it. Yep. Just need Wi-Fi and a good connection, right?
Totally. All right. So let's get to the guests. Who we got on today?
So I'm really excited. It's not a traditional mayor, CIO, city manager, someone doing innovative things in the municipality. It's actually someone doing something really interesting, innovatively in the city. And her name is Lava Sunder. I was thinking, how do I actually know her? I don't know. I'm kind of funny like this. I remember I was at a GPEC event and I run into John Graham. You know him. He's on the board of PI. And I'm telling you, the guy was like a kid in a candy store. He was so excited. And he's like, we're having a glass of wine. And he's like, I can't tell you what I'm so excited about. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm under NDA. They fly me out. I'm talking to all these tech executives. And I'm like, what in the world is a commercial? So John, for those who don't know, John Graham runs Sunbelt Holdings for the Phoenix Valley. It is like one of the creme de la creme building developers, and he's on boards of almost everything around here. And then I see this announcement of this thing called Culdesac. And I'm like, that is what he's up to. I guarantee it. And so knowing who John is and just my love of like the founders of Open Door, I for those who don't know, I used to own a real estate brokerage, kind of tech forward, built it pretty. And so Open Door is like, definitely kind of changed the game for real estate. And I'm like, putting two and two together, I got to meet people at Culdesac. So I'm just kind of fishing my way through, and I meet Lava. And we went and had a beer one time, and I was like stunned. Like, this thing is amazing. Like I got to go meet a bunch of her colleagues, and it's in that outdoor setting, and they're literally just doing amazing things. And who knows? And they're so passionate about this carless. Like, they were asking people how long they've been car-free, and I'm like, they're making me feel guilty. I got a car. I was like, I got an electric car. Like, I don't even have a carbon footprint in terms of the output. And I was feeling guilty sitting at the picnic table talking to these folks like, oh, what are they going to ask me? And like, I got that little guy over there. So yeah, it's just I think a really exciting concept that I think will relate to our guests. How do you allow something like this to happen? And we'll see. It's not the traditional type of story, but should be fun.
No, I'm fascinated. I know, in our work with the Connective, a lot of the city managers, CIOs, they're all interested in what's going on. How is it turning out? How are they doing this? And we've even got, contacted by people around the country when they saw that announcement saying, what is it? How can we learn more? Can we talk to them? Can we get them here? So I'm fascinated to learn more about the story and where they're at now. And hopefully, it's going to be great advice for our listeners. So should we get her in here?
Let's do it. Let's bring Lava on.
All right, here we go.
All right. Well, Lava, please let Dom and I give you a warm welcome to our podcast, The Urban Complex.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. Well, let's start about you. A lot of times our audience loves to find out who our guests are. Just tell us a little bit about who you are as a person, your background before joining Culdesac, and obviously we'll talk about the company.
Yeah. So, my name is Lava. I live in Tempe and I live car-free. I've been car-free for about 2 years and I get around mostly on my e-bike and light rail and walking. So I think the two things that are helpful to know about me is that I actually never used to be car-free. When I was 16, I got my driver's license. I was born and raised in Houston, which I'm sure you guys know is one of the most car-dependent cities in the US. I was one of those kids that made my parents take me into driver's ed right the second I turned 15, got my license the second I turned 16, and was just very eager to have a car because in Houston, the only way to really get mobility freedom is through a car. And so I'm not one of those folks that has sort of always been a biker. It's been something that really my eyes were open to. Honestly, once I went to college and saw that it was so much nicer to not have to drive everywhere. Walking and biking were really such a better way of living. I actually ended up bringing the first bike share program to my university. I went to school in North Carolina at Duke. And since then, I've just kind of been hooked on micromobility. I think the second thing to know about my background that's interesting is I am the daughter of immigrants who immigrated to the US without a family network or community network. So the only family I have in the US is my immediate family. And I think I felt that a lot growing up. So I didn't really know my neighbors. I didn't have a very strong sense of community. I had a fantastic, childhood in terms of just my parents providing for me. But I think community was something that I really lacked. And so I'm also very much passionate about bringing community to people and having that be part of the built environment and not sort of an afterthought. And then in terms of what I do now, I'm the general manager at Culdesac. I manage our first community, Culdesac Tempe. It's the first car-free community built from scratch in the US. It is 1,000 residents and 0 parking spots for those residents. So I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. Ironic, you come from the hotbed of traditional energy, Houston, and now you're focused on the car-free world. So tell us about kind of Culdesac and what the company's all about, kind of where it's headed, how it got started. I mean, you gave just a glimpse, but I think it's really interesting. I think it's something that'll resonate as people kind of think differently because it's a very different concept.
Sure. So, Culdesac was founded in 2018, and the mission was really to build cities for people and not cars. So one of the fundamental theses behind Culdesac is that real estate and transportation work best together. So if you think about how Manhattan was built, real estate developers got farmland essentially and then paid for rail lines to the farmland. And that actually really increased the value and the vibrancy of that land. And transportation has been changing, rapidly. So we think about rideshare and scooter share, recently e-bikes, which have had their best year in the US since their inception. But the way that we build largely has stayed the exact same since when, the cars were sort of the primary mode of transportation. So really the mission of Culdesac is to build housing to reflect the way that folks get around today. One of the other things that we like to say is 53% of Americans want to live in a walkable neighborhood, but only 8% do. And so what ends up happening is the neighborhoods that are walkable are quite expensive. You know, you think Manhattan, you think downtown San Francisco. And so they're sort of prohibitively expensive for the average American that really wants to live in a walkable neighborhood. And so we want to build and bring that type of, you know, downtown life to be an option for folks who live in places like Tempe.
That's awesome. I mean, what a great mission. And I myself am someone that's very supportive of that. I moved to downtown Phoenix so that way I could try to walk around as much as possible and not use my car. So I'm absolutely fascinated by the mission and, you know, and the vision of Culdesac. Congrats on all the success so far. You know, so what we love to do on this as a Smart Cities podcast, we always love to ask our guests, you know, what their kind of vision or idea is or view is of a smart city, you know, what they are and kind of how does what you're doing today kind of fit in that view or advance that movement that is smart cities, right? Because the toughest thing is everyone loves to talk about smart cities, but we really don't know what the definition of a smart city is. So we love to get kind of your view on what is a smart city to you. And then again, how does Culdesac kind of advancing that mission?
Yeah, you know, I think for me, a smart city is a city that fundamentally is thoughtfully designed for humans. And so if you think about cities right now, or really even homes, you open your door and you open it onto typically a driveway or a road. And, you know, the first thing that you do is get into your vehicle to get anywhere. And for us, you know, that's definitely an option that folks might want. But for us, we think that that's, you know, not very smart because you're essentially not thoughtfully designing the environment to be taken into consideration for human. Since, you know, a lot of recent innovations in human-centered design and really the way that kind of tech has integrated into our life, like I said, for the most part, the way the actual built environment is built is still largely the same. So really, I think, you know, when folks talk about smart cities, they like to talk about integrated technology and a lot of other these like sensors. And for us, it's just like being very thoughtfully designed. In terms of how Culdesac is a smart city, we really think about internally, our product is delivering a neighborhood. And so a third of the Culdesac team is engineering. We are both a real estate developer and a property manager. And so what we're building is a community and, you know, the sort of tech layer on top of that to make people feel like they're being considered at every step of the way. And so this is something as simple as, you know, being notified every single step of kind of a maintenance request, or something as simple as when you walk out your door, instead of seeing a driveway, you see a courtyard with a barbecue pit and neighbors. And I think that, you know, we spend, there are sort of tens and hundreds of teams optimizing, you know, the Facebook mobile app, for instance. But like we want to take that same level of care to optimize a courtyard and a bedroom and, you know, a neighborhood as a whole.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. It's just completely brilliant in such a fresh, I guess, refreshing way of thinking. I really feel like, Chris, we're kind of talking to the future of smart communities. This is fantastic. So talk to us about why Tempe, or, you know, what stood out to make you select the city of Tempe and their community as, you know, kind of the first location for Culdesac. What kind of were you looking for when you were looking for your first location?
Yeah, Tempe is such a special city. You know, I had never been to Tempe prior to joining Culdesac. And so, and of course I live here now, and I've lived here for about a year. And I've had a lot of friends visit me in Tempe. And I think not a lot of folks outside of Arizona know about Tempe. And everyone visits and just says, like, wow, this city is the future. Like, you know, there's like 6 cranes in downtown Tempe right now. Everything is new. Tempe Beach Park and Tempe Town Lake is just so phenomenal. And so just like, I have a lot of love for Tempe. And I think that, you know, it's a phenomenal place. In terms of why Culdesac chose it as a city, you know, there's a few reasons. So one is just the job market. You know, Tempe has the hottest commercial market in the US. Companies like Open Door and DoorDash have relocated large offices here. Of course, there's companies like Amazon, ZipRecruiter that already had offices here. And, you know, this growing tech force is just really incredible to see. a lot of future residents of Culdesac come from that community. The second reason is really the transportation. So we're building Cul-De-Sac Tempe on the Smith Martin Apache Boulevard light rail station on Apache. Our future residents will get to walk across the street in a dedicated pedestrian crosswalk to the light rail station. And that type of access to public transportation is really unbeatable, especially, it's just 30 minutes to downtown Phoenix. It's just a few minutes to downtown Tempe. And of course, with the streetcar opening up soon, it's really going to be an incredible transportation experience for residents. And the final reason is just the city is incredibly forward thinking. They're very innovative. So the city of Tempe has incredible sort of data infrastructure. I know even the CDC has commended them on the work they do with wastewater data testing. It's been, prior to COVID, they used that for opioid, kind of managing opioid outbreaks. And now they use it for COVID. And it's just like, they're an incredibly forward-thinking city. And they were really excited to be a partner with us. And we've really sort of experienced an incredible partnership every step of the way.
Yeah, Rolf Halden, the professor doing all that work with wastewater is amazing. But so on your list, you didn't mention the proximity to the DABA.
That is, that's the fourth reason, actually. I wanted to do the top three, but the close fourth is the proximity to the DABA.
My friend Govind Arora, who I worked with at Honeywell, his dad owns the building and the restaurant. It's amazing. Like,
I have a funny story about the DABA. So I'm for the listeners, I'm Indian, and my family, my mother specifically, like demands to go to any Indian restaurant, within a 20-mile radius whenever we're on vacation. So we were on vacation in North Scottsdale years ago, like it has been 6 years ago. And she said, find the highest rated Indian restaurant in the area. And it was the DABA. And so, we went, we had a great time. And then, 2 years ago, when I was visiting the Culdesac site for the first time, Jeff, one of the co-founders of Culdesac, said, can you just meet me at the DABA? And we could walk across the street. And I called my mom. I said, Mom, you'll never believe it. I'm at the DABA
again. That's a great story. I love it. You mentioned Tempe and kind of the leadership within the city being very forward looking. We were lucky enough to have, the CIO and Mark and Rosa on as an early podcast guest. And you're right. I mean, it's just terrific. The exuberance that they really bring to innovation and for being forward thinking, it's fantastic. And I think it's really setting the city of Tempe apart, as you mentioned. So, a lot of our audience is, city managers, CIOs, economic development directors, all throughout the entire country. So what might be some advice for these other city managers or CIOs, economic development directors in different cities around the country that are fascinated by what Culdesac is doing and how might they be able to kind of work with you or work with, organizations like you? What would your piece of advice be? Is it be forward thinking, or what else might you suggest for these other city officials?
Yeah, it's a great question. In general, I think first and foremost, if you are a city manager, you're interested in working with us, email nextcity@culdesac.com. That's like the first step, I would say. But beyond that, I mean, we're looking for cities that are growing and that are excited about thinking about transportation in a different way. Maybe to talk about a little bit of what the city of Tempe has done. With the city of Tempe, we passed a historic development agreement to actually completely waive the residential parking requirement at a neighborhood scale. So it's the first time that this has happened at a neighborhood scale. It sometimes happens at single buildings, typically in New York City, sometimes, in other cities like Austin, but we are a 17-acre development. We're quite a large development. And so to have no residential parking is being very forward thinking. I actually think just a few months ago, it was announced that another development in Charlotte is also waiving the residential or getting the residential parking requirement waived. So we're very excited to start seeing
a cul-de-sac development or something similar. Okay,
something different. Yeah.
So someone else is kind of figuring out this as a theme too. Okay.
And we're excited about that, by the way. I mean, I think like Culdesac is excited for as many, car light, car free, car independent communities to happen. And so just thinking about how the city of Tempe, was able to sort of come to that arrangement, I think is important. And then other things that the city of Tempe did in terms of like what was very helpful for us is just being very creative. So one example for folks that are listening, the Cul-de-sac site has no internal roads, but of course fire access is important. And so what the city of Tempe did is actually like co-created with us to make it such that the internal pathways that you would think of as like walking pathways or biking pathways are actually also mountable fire lanes, but they just don't look like that at all. They just look like, a sort of path in a European village, right? It's paved. There's a lot of landscaping, but by the way, they're 26 feet wide. There's fire access, there's ladder access. And so it's like being creative on things like that was very helpful for us. And in terms of our next development, Cul-de-sac Tempe is really the beginning, but we want to go even bigger. So Cul-de-sac Tempe is 17 acres. We're looking at 50 to 100 acres for our next projects. And so the type of collaboration we'll have to do with the city will also be different. It won't be exactly what we did with Tempe, but I think having that collaborative spirit and willing to come to the table as not only a partner, but as a co-creator is really what we're looking for.
Yeah, that's exciting. I mean, we just had Emily Yates, who's the Smart City Director for the city of Philadelphia. And it's exciting to see a city start to teach kind of design thinking, co-creation internally to the city staff, because I think it's those kinds of skills that are going to be necessary to enable projects like Culdesac to really come to fruition and really start to drive, the future of cities. So I think it's exciting to see this come to life. So congrats again.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you mentioned in your intro about yourself that you're oriented towards community, and what little I know about Culdesac, that's the center of what is happening. Tell our listeners what you're already doing to kind of MVP or in terms minimum viable product, like how you create that community out of the gate. What are you already doing today when the site isn't even built to kind of emulate what it could look like? I find it fascinating.
Yeah, so we have a wait list of folks that are looking to move in. And so these are folks that have kind of put down a deposit, they've held their place in line, and we really treat these people as the founding residents of Culdesac. And these folks are very excited about Culdesac. Some have actually already moved to Arizona from out of state to kind of acclimate their children or acclimate themselves to the environment. And actually what's interesting is that 60% of these folks come from outside Arizona. So there are people that are moving to Tempe from cities like San Francisco, Austin, New York, that are really looking to kind of fully adopt the lifestyle. And so in terms of, I like this kind of phrase of MVPing the community. I think one thing that we're doing is making sure that not only these people are, engaging together. So we do monthly events and we have different hosts, but we actually allow those folks to create, once again, co-create what the community looks like. So an example of this is, as you guys know, development processes are like multi-stage, right? So a lot of the core sort of development of Culdesac was already set after having this list of founding residents. But stuff as simple as like, what is the furniture that's going to go in the outdoor courtyards? How many grills and what are the size of grills that we have? To what is the grocery store going to carry? What type of produce, how much of produce? These are questions that we had the space to discuss and decide on and actually have fully engaged our founding residents for. So it's a really amazing process. And we've had some really great feedback that has really tangibly changed what the community will look like in a way that I think is very positive. And yeah, I mean, I have so many funny and sweet stories from the founding residence process. One that's, maybe really sweet is we kind of profile some of these founding residents. And so we did a profile of one of our founding residents and kind of posted it on our blog. So if you check out the blog on the Culdesac website, I think it's called the Meet the Resident series. And someone else on our wait list said, oh my gosh, I know, this person's name from elementary school. We were really good friends in kindergarten. I can't believe it. I have to reach out to her. I can't believe she's also, coming to Culdesac. And so it's just like, these stories are happening all over the place. Founding residents are kind of starting to have their own communities and think about like living in certain courtyards together. And so, it's very important to me personally, as I said in my intro, and I can't wait to see how it unfolds at Culdesac.
Well, I even see, that you're building community with your own team. I mean, many of you are living at a apartment complex, like right next to your site. And I mean, you invited me to come check out one time. You guys are literally at a picnic table in the middle of COVID outside, experiencing, obviously it'll be a different experience when you're not in a parking lot, when you've designed for this, but you're experiencing what your guests or what your residents will be doing in Culdesac of dining across their group. And so you're building empathy for what your residents are going to be experiencing there. I think it's pretty cool what's happening. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but.
Yeah, I would love to. That's a great point, Chris. So, we have this kind of saying internally of dog fooding. And so it's this concept I'm sure you guys are aware of, but it's kind of the practice of an organization like eating their own dog food, which is using their own product. And so, like I said, our product is the neighborhood, and it's a neighborhood in which you live car-free in Tempe. So the best way to build customer empathy is to, in fact, live car-free in Tempe. So, after COVID, I think now a majority of our team lives in Tempe. All of the folks who live in Tempe live car-free, and a number of them live, like you said, at an apartment complex right near the future Culdesac site. And what this allows us to do is to bike to get groceries and, figure out what that experience is like. Bike to the local restaurants like the Daba, and figure out, is there enough bike parking? Can we ask these folks to give us discounts since we're biking and we're not taking up parking spots? Everything from how can I communicate with my food delivery driver, my grocery delivery driver to figure out how to share our meals. And, what you mentioned, Chris, is kind of our parklet. So we've converted a few parking spots into a mini park, which is also just sort of like really trying to envision what we can do with the space that's currently devoted to parking. And I think you're completely right. We're not only building community with our future residents, but also with Greater Tempe. So I've had really incredible conversations with the bike groups, the local bike groups, the local community groups. We have something like 8 restaurants, mostly on Apache, who are so excited about biking that they've decided to give discounts to bikers. And so these are restaurants like Chen's Noodle House, Stronger Paradise, Daba. And I think we at Culdesac don't want to just be an island. We want to be an integral part of the community. The community is not gated. There's a main park open to the public. There's a grocery store, restaurant, coffee shop that will be open to the public. And so, sort of starting to meet the community, I think, is the best way to plant the seed for the full community in the years to come.
Great. How about with oftentimes design, at least urban-wise, design is related to building the development, but design is also related to tech in many ways. And I know you have a strong interest. How can you tell our listeners kind of how you're using technology to augment the Culdesac community experience? You mentioned earlier your focus on specifically around the living experience and whatnot, but like how do you envision tech being used? What can you share about that?
Sure. I think, like I said, a core part of the Culdesac company ethos is that, tech is a tool to make the built experience and built environment smoother. So the founder and CEO of Culdesac, Ryan, he was on the founding team of Open Door. And Open Door is another great example of a company that really has excelled in making an in-person experience. And so this is like visiting a home, feel seamless with a lot of technology in the back end. So I forget the number, but it's something like half of the engineers at Open Door are dedicated to working on internal tools, which is just tech that makes the outside experience seem like it's, someone with a magic wand waving stuff. And I would say that's a similar ethos for Culdesac. So, it's kind of like when you move into Culdesac, there's no internal roads. So how can we make reserving a parking spot for your U-Haul as seamless as possible? How can we make submitting a maintenance request, paying your bills, understanding the transportation options that are available as seamless as possible? And how can we really make meeting your residents, fellow neighbors as seamless as possible as well? So the goal is really to use the technology to make your experience in the built world as satisfying as possible.
Yeah, that's really cool. You mentioned earlier you're thinking about really raising the scale of future sites. I think you said 50 to 100 acres. I know ASU or Arizona State has Novus Innovation Corridor going in. It's 335 acres. So you're starting to get into some really sizable projects. Is there anything you can share about future sites? Like, have you selected the next one, or I don't know if that's public knowledge or not.
No, nothing to share now, but we're very excited to share updates soon. We're, like I said, the goal of Culdesac is to build the first car-free city in the U.S. Tempe is the first project. 50 to 100 acres will be our next set of projects. But really, our goal is a car-free city, and I'm very excited when that day comes.
Yeah, cool. So, we'll go a little broader than Culdesac here with this next question. So, when you say what you consider smart city, and what initiatives are you watching that get you excited about the vision you have for smart cities beyond Culdesac? Obviously, from what I've learned from you, you're pretty focused on Culdesac. You're pretty focused on Carfree. But what do you see out there that you think our guests should be aware of that's happening that's excites you?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question. I think, like I said, my and the team's interpretation of what a smart city is just being very thoughtful and people first in designing. Mm-hmm. I think, especially post-COVID, we've seen a number of cities in the US really transform what the public space looks like. Everything from outdoor dining and parking spots that are sort of been converted to dining. Actually, right where I live, off Mill, there's a number of restaurants that have converted parking spots to dining, which has been really amazing. Also, the slow streets and open streets movement, which is like, let's take all of this land that we previously, devoted to cars and actually just convert it to car-free pedestrian walkways. So I think those things are exciting. I think the city that I've been just most impressed and excited about is actually Paris. Paris used to be, especially kind of the CBD, used to be quite car clogged. There was a lot of traffic, and Paris has really been transformed into like a biking metropolitan area. I think the coolest thing about what's happened in Paris with Mayor Hidalgo is that 60% of bikers in Paris only started biking kind of after the recent set of lanes. And so only in the last year. And so when people are sort of like, asking for bike lanes and folks respond, oh, well, there's no bikers. It's like, you have to build the lanes and they will come. Right. And like Paris is such an amazing example of that. And particularly impressive, just given, of course, like the weight it has internationally as a city, but also the history and being quite car dependent. And so, yeah, I think that's like the smartest thing I've seen a city do. And I've been very impressed with Mayor Hidalgo, the work she's been doing. That's
really interesting, because you said early on, I don't want to see something to this effect. I don't want to see cities built for cars. And that's an amazing stat that 60% of bikers have started since they've added the lanes, which are recent. So it's a new design. What's interesting, I'm actually in California right now, and the only place you can eat at a restaurant right now is outside. They've converted their parking lots into extended dining. So there's a really interesting experiment going on these things. So, well, cool. So what's that? Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say one thing is like, one thing I wanted to note is we're obviously very passionate about car-free communities and car-free cities, But I also think I want to stress that we believe it's an option for people. You know, I don't want to mandate that everyone needs to live in a car-free community. It's mostly like there's clearly a supply-demand mismatch. You know, 53% of people want this, but there's only 8% of neighborhoods that are this. And so we just want to give more people the option to live in a car-free city, just as there is an option to live, you know, in a car-dependent, more car sort of centric neighborhood.
So Houston will still exist.
Yes. You know?
Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So we do kind of have two standard questions as we wrap up. I know you had a hard stop today, so we appreciate your time. We'll have to get you back as Culdesac launches and see where things go when you get other locations. But, you know, you can't do it on your own. And is there anyone you want to call out that's been you're particularly appreciative of? We know for our own work, and we're a lot of times we get recommendation for guests to come on because of the people we know. But who do you want to call out that's kind of helped you and or Culdesac or whatever it may be that you're excited about that's helped you along your way?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people that have helped from the team and the community. You know, retailers that are kind of taking a chance on Culdesac. I think I will probably say maybe like almost the unsung heroes of development is like the city staff. You know, I think obviously council has been incredible. Both the current and previous mayor have been very helpful and positive about Culdesac. But the folks that are like, you know, the people that are helping us figure out fire lanes and code and really taking the chance on like, how do you fundamentally change what the build code could be in Tempe are really the city staff. And there are some true heroes that are incredibly knowledgeable about what they do and really thoughtful and also really excited to take on a new challenge. So I would say without them, we certainly could not be doing what we're doing. And, you know, I just want to thank them.
Cool. So our last question is, you've gotten to know us and the Urban Complex podcast, what guests we should have on. And by the way, if you know Mayor Hidalgo, please make an introduction.
That's my answer. That's my answer. You guys have to get into Mayor Hidalgo.
I'm working on it. We had another, so we were making fun. So Tempe, I don't know if you know the history, but like 15 years ago, Tempe was known as the 20-minute city. And so when we had him on, we were joking around that, you know, Mayor Hidalgo's, you'll get this 15-minute city thing. It's kind of like something about Mary, you know, the 6-minute abs became the 5-minute abs. I don't know. So it's just kind of funny. Do you know her?
I don't, unfortunately. You know, if I get it in, I might just keep it for myself. I'm to be honest.
Come on, that's not giving back.
No, I'm kidding. I mean, I would love. You guys should definitely get Mayor Hidalgo on here. Yeah, that would be awesome. I'll think about other guests and I'll get back to you.
Sounds good. Okay, well, let's wrap it up with that. The Urban Complex gives a big note of thanks to today's guest, Lava Sunder, General Manager of Culdesac. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys for having me.
Cool. All right, Dom. Well, that was Lava and Culdesac. What do you think?
Yeah, that was a lot of fun and super interesting. You know, it was fascinating to finally learn a bit more about what they're doing. And there's really like two main takeaways, you know, from my kind of city management side of things, kind of the way I'm thinking. What I found fascinating was how the city of Tempe and Culdesac kind of came together and really co-created a new process to allow this development to fit within the, you know, the regulations and the ordinances and everything like that. That's almost unheard of, right?
It was. She said it was the first in the nation that got rid of the parking ordinance. Like, that's pretty groundbreaking.
Well, exactly. And, you know, I think a lot of cities get thrown under the bus sometimes, or, you know, this whole smart city movement is all about this new way to approach new challenges or new opportunities.
Try new things. Try to figure out, deconstruct and rebuild. Yeah.
The city of Tempe could have just said no, right?
Yeah, exactly.
This is too new. This is too off the wall. We don't even want to deal with this. We don't know what we're doing. Not to mention, what are we going to do with fire trucks and things? They could have just said no.
They found a way to go right down one of their lanes without a road, but that was accessible, and they just recreated what the possibilities were.
Totally. To me, that's a smart city in and of itself right there. The city of Tempe said, why not? Let's work with them. Let's see if we can make this work, and look what's going to happen, right? First location for Culdesac in the nation, and something that I really think is going to set a trend and really take off if they can get it done successfully, which I have no doubt in my mind they're going to do. So I just thought from the city's perspective, from smart cities, people that are listening, taking advice, don't be so fast to say no to an idea that might not fit within what is traditional for your city. There might be an opportunity like Culdesac that just takes you to say, why not? Let's see what can happen. Let's sit at the table. Let's kind of try to co-create this together. So I thought that was really fascinating. What about you? What were some of your takeaways?
Well, I thought you had a second one. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this idea. Thanks for reminding me. It's this idea of what I couldn't remember the percentage, but how people transitioned into becoming bikers, right? It wasn't that I
think she said 60% became bikers after they created the lanes, and it's like relatively recent. That's amazing.
It's amazing. It had me thinking of this whole changing culture, changing mindset. I remember when we had our ASU Winter Games, we had the deputy mayor of Lisbon on there, and he owns a car, he owns the bike, he owns a lot of different modes of transportation. And he was talking about his little kids, and he's really gotten into really biking everywhere that he can, and taking his kids along on seats on the back of the bike. So much so that now anytime they go anywhere, the kids immediately go hop on the bike. They don't even think about the car. And when the dad tries to take the car, the kids go, "No, we want to take the bike. We want to take the bike." And so it's interesting that it's ingrained in their mind that they want to bike now. And that's kind of their number one mode of transportation. And so you start to think, well, how do we get that kick started, right? If they're not bikers now, or they weren't lifelong bikers, how do we start? And it's not that they'll never be. It's just go ahead and get started, because all it takes is for you to build it, and then it starts to change the mindset, it starts to change the culture.
Yeah, it's a great point.
That trickles down to the next generation, right? Because
at ASU, they put all these Arizona State, they put all these bike cages and skateboard racks, and they're helping kind of recreate mobility. And you just see bikers, skateboarders, scooters, like everywhere. It's pretty wild. It's a good point.
I just thought it was fascinating. Just last point on that is because she's right. A lot, when these ideas come to mayors or councils and they're being debated, at a council meeting, that's the number one thing you hear is, we don't have that much of a population of biking to mandate these lanes or, this development. Why would we do something like that? It's, I think that's another,
think about it from the citizen's view, right? Yeah. If you don't need to invest in a garage to hold your car, and you don't need to buy a car to have it get you twice a day to and from work, that in a weird way, we've seen the relationship with work is changing. Whether we'll be back there 5 days a week or not, in terms of traditional office worker, we'll see what happens when COVID comes out. I'm sure we'll get back to some closer, but will be 5 days. And so if you can cut that time down and you don't need it, think about the capital that will be freed up to do other things. And like a bike is so much cheaper, even an e-bike. They're pretty expensive, but like comparatively, $3,000 versus, significantly higher. So I think, on my end, designing for use is so critical. And when she was talking about building community, first of all, we need to be honest with our guests. Cul-De-Sac doesn't even technically exist. If you drive by it on Apache Boulevard in Tempe, it's still dirt. But yet they have people waiting to be a resident, and they're not even opening until the end of 2021. So just by the way, they haven't started. They haven't started building. They're close. They're about to start, erecting up the community. But that 17-acre property is just raw land right now. That's been zoned. It's been prepared, and so the fact that they're already planning community and they're building community in the prospect of answering what it is, and the prospect of when they get people to sign up, and then the prospect of their employees, of how to envision and create empathy for what their guests or what their, residents would be like that is super creative in an approach.
Super powerful. That's, I think she said it over and over, as seamless as possible, as seamless as possible, as seamless as possible. And to me, that's a great point of advice.
Well, that leads into the next part. Is like the technology. A third of their people are engineers. Yep. And I'm not talking about building engineers. We're talking about they write code. They are a tech company. They are creating things that'll scale to the next one, these bigger ones, and they're thinking through the experience. Now, she had to be a little careful. I don't know exactly. I know a little deeper. Like they are talking about like how do they integrate with mobility options? How do they integrate with access to the facilities that are there? How do they get into their own rooms? And so there'll be a lot unveiled when they have this, but they're putting a lot of energy into what technology can do to make it a seamless experience, make it an easy experience, and really bring forward what the life of a resident in a carless society could be. Pretty cool.
Totally. I think it's a great approach that cities could learn from, right? Yeah. Try to make that user experience as seamless as possible through tech. I thought it was phenomenal. So should we shift over to cracks in the pavement? I didn't get to catch anything this week. What about you? You got anything?
I know we've talked a little bit about it before, but I saw this article, and it's all around these air taxis. And I remember way back when Dubai supposedly has kind of like an air taxi service. I think it's Joby Aviation is one that's been pretty big. I think they even went public. This article is just Archer's, the latest to target 2024 for an air taxi network. It's just really interesting because, again, think about what we just saw. If you can create a carless society that creates new space and now obviously if the air taxi, hopefully we can get it to where it's cost effective and it takes away more need to have a car and you can get above things and everyone's on bikes. I don't know, it kind of fits into this theme. I don't know much about it. I have to do some more research. We'll have to get a guest on that's really an expert here. But it just seems to me like it could really change the trajectory of transportation and how cities operate. But I don't know. What do you know?
Yeah, no, I know it's a major industry and one I think we're looking very heavily at here in Arizona to potentially hopefully be, a proving grounds for these air taxis, these advanced aerial machines, mobility devices. So we're fascinated by it. I mean, think about all the things you could do, not only just air taxis, but think about, drone delivery, medical delivery, all the sorts of things that come with this kind of aerial mobility systems. I think it's fascinating.
And creating special lanes for special purpose and kind of really rethinking the skies in how you can get either people from point A to point B or goods to your point with the drones and delivery from point A to point B. I mean, we're blessed. We have a governor that creates these, these sandboxes to try things. And, we've seen from our own mobility experience with Waymo and others that, we're here to try these things. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, maybe that's a good call out. Maybe we can call out anyone in the industry, one, to come talk to us, be on our podcast so we can learn more about the industry, but two, come to Arizona. I mean, nowhere better to test these, right? We've got great weather, relatively flat, no natural disasters. I made this pitch. We were doing a project with the city of Glendale. I made this pitch to say, let's become the proving grounds and then let's unveil the first commercial air taxi at the Super Bowl in 2023. I think that'd be a lot.
Nice. Good point. Super Bowl's coming here.
Exactly.
All right. Well, Dom, once again, that's a wrap. Thanks for listening to The Urban Complex. Smarter cities for a stronger tomorrow. Please find us on where you listen, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. We do love your feedback. Let us know if you have ideas for guests or questions to air on Cracks in the Pavement via social media. The Urban Complex is found on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Or just shoot me an email, chris@theurbancomplex.com. Until next time.